On Christmas Eve 2002, a woman 8 months pregnant went for a short walk with her dog in a quiet California town and never came back. By nightfall, her husband calmly told police she was missing. By the time her body washed up months later in the same bay he had been fishing, America was already asking a terrifying question. How does a perfect marriage turn into a murder mystery that shocks an entire nation? The disappearance of Laci Peterson did not begin with sirens or screams. It began with a normal morning in Modesto, California, on December 24, 2002. The town was wrapped in winter sunlight, Christmas decorations still glowing from the night before. Inside a modest home on Covina Avenue, Laci Peterson was getting ready for the day. She was 27 years old, 8 months pregnant, and excited about becoming a mother. She had already chosen a name for her unborn son, Connor. Her husband, Scott Peterson, later said they had eaten breakfast together. He told police Laci planned to mop the floors and walk the dog. Scott said he was going fishing at the Berkeley Marina, nearly 90 miles away. He left the house around 9:30 a.m., kissed his wife goodbye, and drove off. That was the last time anyone would ever see Laci alive. When Scott returned home that evening, Laci was gone. The dog was found wandering the neighborhood, still wearing its leash. Laci's car was parked outside. Her purse, phone, and shoes were still inside the house. There were no signs of a struggle. It looked as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Scott called Laci's mother and then dialed 911. "My wife is missing," he said calmly. At first, the case looked like a tragic disappearance. A pregnant woman vanishing days before Christmas felt like every family's worst nightmare. The community rallied around the Peterson family. Volunteers searched parks, fields, and neighborhoods. Flyers with Laci's smiling face were posted across California. Candlelight vigils were held. News channels began broadcasting the story non-stop. But within days, the story took a dark and disturbing turn. Police discovered that Scott Peterson was not the grieving husband he appeared to be on television. Behind closed doors, Scott had been living a double life. Just weeks before Laci disappeared, Scott had started an affair with a massage therapist named Amber Frey. He told Amber he was a widower. He said his wife had died, and this would be his first Christmas without her. The truth was even more chilling. When he said those words, Laci was still alive and pregnant with his child. After Laci vanished, Amber contacted police and revealed everything. Investigators secretly recorded her phone calls with Scott. In those calls, Scott pretended to be overseas, claimed he was in Paris, and avoided answering direct questions about Laci. While the entire country was searching for his missing wife, Scott was lying to his mistress about his location. Public opinion shifted overnight. The man once seen as a heartbroken husband now looked like a prime suspect. As the investigation deepened, strange details began to surface. Scott had told police he went fishing in the San Francisco Bay on the same day Laci disappeared. It seemed like an odd choice for Christmas Eve, especially since Laci was heavily pregnant and needed support at home. Even stranger, Scott had purchased a small boat in secret just weeks earlier. He never told Laci or her family about it. He paid in cash. No one knew about the boat until police found it during their investigation. Then came the most chilling coincidence of all. On April 13, 2003, almost 4 months after Laci vanished, a body was discovered on the shoreline of the San Francisco Bay. It was badly decomposed, but investigators soon confirmed it was Laci. The next day, the remains of a male fetus washed up nearby. It was baby Connor. The exact location where the bodies were found was only a few miles from where Scott claimed he had gone fishing. For many people, that single fact destroyed any remaining doubt. Scott Peterson was arrested shortly after. By then, his behavior had become even more suspicious. He had dyed his hair. He was carrying large amounts of cash. He had his brother's ID. He was heading toward the Mexican border. To prosecutors, it looked like a man trying to disappear. The trial of Scott Peterson began in 2004 and quickly became one of the most famous court cases in American history. Cameras surrounded the courthouse. Every facial expression, every word Scott spoke was analyzed by millions of viewers. The prosecution painted Scott as a narcissist who wanted freedom from his marriage and unborn child. They argued that Scott murdered Laci, weighted her body down with homemade anchors, and dumped her into the bay from his boat. They presented evidence that Scott had researched tidal patterns, purchased materials used for anchors, and lied repeatedly about his activities. They played the recorded phone calls with Amber Frey in court. The jury listened as Scott spoke lovingly to his mistress while his wife was missing. The defense argued there was no direct physical evidence linking Scott to the murder. No murder weapon, no eyewitness. They claimed Laci may have been abducted by burglars in the neighborhood. They said the media had turned Scott into a villain before the trial even began. But the jury was not convinced. After months of testimony, Scott Peterson was found guilty of first-degree murder for Laci and second-degree murder for Connor. In 2005, he was sentenced to death. For many Americans, the case felt solved. The husband had killed his wife, justice had been served. But the story did not end there. Over the years, Scott Peterson's legal team continued to appeal the verdict. They argued that media coverage had poisoned the jury pool and that Scott never received a fair trial. In 2020, his death sentence was overturned due to jury selection issues, though his murder conviction remained. Today, Scott Peterson remains in prison serving life without parole. Yet even now, more than 2 decades later, the case still divides people. Some believe the evidence against Scott is overwhelming: a secret affair, a hidden boat, the bodies found where he claimed to be fishing, his lies, his behavior, his attempt to flee. Others believe the case was built on circumstantial evidence and media pressure. They argue there was no direct proof of how Laci died or who killed her. But one truth remains unchangeable. Laci Peterson never got to become a mother. Baby Connor never got to take his first breath. 2 lives ended before Christmas, and a quiet town became the center of one of the most haunting true crime stories in modern history. What makes the Laci Peterson case so terrifying is not just the murder itself, but how ordinary it all seemed at the beginning. No warning signs, no violent history, just a smiling couple, a baby on the way, and a man who said goodbye one morning and returned to a life forever destroyed.